My girlfriend made fun of my job in front of her friends and broke up with me at a cafe. As she walked away, she said, "Someone like you doesn't deserve me." I stayed quiet and waited. This afternoon, she sent me a message begging to talk. I, 28M, met Katie, 27F, about a year ago. We'd been together for 10 months, and things were going really well, or so I thought. At least, that's how it seemed at the start. Katie had a way of making everything feel effortless. She was one of those people who could walk into a room and instantly command attention. I always admired that about her. She had this group of friends, and they were nice enough, but there was something about them that made me feel out of place at times. Anyway, I work as a freelance graphic designer. It's not the most glamorous job, but it pays the bills, and I've built up a decent client base over the years. I'm good at what I do, and I'm proud of my work. But, of course, Katie and her friends had a different perspective on the whole thing. This one Saturday afternoon, Katie invited me to meet her at this cafe she liked. It was a casual thing, no big deal. I was actually kind of excited because we hadn't seen each other much the past week due to her work schedule. I showed up a little early and grabbed a table by the window, doing what I usually do, checking emails, scrolling through social media, and just sort of zoning out. She arrived about 15 minutes later, looking great as usual. She had this big smile on her face, and I immediately stood up to greet her. We hugged, kissed, and then she sat down, and we started chatting. Everything felt normal, lighthearted, until she started telling me about this get-together she'd had with her friends earlier that day. They were all talking about their work, and I felt so out of place. "You know, everyone's got these high-powered careers," Katie said with a little eye roll. I nodded, not thinking much of it. "Yeah, I get that. Some people just love to brag." Katie chuckled, but there was something behind her laugh. She continued, "Yeah, they were all like, 'Oh, I'm making this much money,' or 'I'm traveling here,' or 'I'm climbing the corporate ladder.' You know, the usual stuff. It's just exhausting to listen to." "You and I? We don't have that kind of life, huh?" She gave me a playful little nudge, but her tone was a bit off. I shrugged, trying to keep the mood light. "Well, I don't need the corporate ladder to feel successful. I'm happy doing what I do. I love creating." She looked at me, almost studying me for a second, then laughed again. It wasn't a fun, warm laugh, more of a sharp, almost mocking one. "Creating? You mean sitting at home in your pajamas and drawing stuff for clients who don't really care about you?" The words hit me like a punch in the gut, but I tried not to let it show. "It's more than that, Katie. It's not just sitting around. I make good money. I've worked really hard to build a reputation." She shrugged, dismissing my response with a flick of her hand. "Yeah, but it's not like you're doing anything impressive. It's not like you're working at a real company, you know? Like, real success comes from climbing the corporate ladder. You're just not there." I felt my stomach drop. I'd heard her say things like this before, but never in front of her friends. And I could tell something was off in her tone. The vibe shifted, and I didn't like it. Before I could respond, her friends walked in, and they all waved when they saw her. Katie stood up to greet them, and I just sat there, feeling suddenly out of place. One of her friends, Amanda, who was always a little too loud for my liking, waved at me. "Hey, graphic designer guy, how's the designing going?" she asked, using air quotes as she spoke. I forced a smile. "It's going fine. Busy as usual." Katie chimed in, laughing a little too loudly. "Yeah, but not busy in the way we think about busy, right? He's just busy drawing stuff for people who don't even know what they want." She laughed again, and her friends joined in. I could feel my face getting warm. I tried to brush it off, but it stung. They didn't get it. None of them did. They didn't understand that it wasn't just about doing a job. It was about creating something that was mine, building my own path. But instead of standing up for myself, I just sat there quietly, trying to swallow the insult. The conversation shifted, but I could tell I wasn't included. They were talking about their careers, their new jobs, the vacations they had planned, and I was just sitting there, feeling more and more like an outsider. Then, out of nowhere, Katie stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I think I'm done here. We'll talk later. Okay. She shot me a quick look, almost like she was waiting for me to respond, but all I could manage was a tight smile. We walked out of the cafe together, and that's when she dropped the bomb. Look, I've been thinking. I don't know if this is working anymore, Katie said, her voice flat. I need someone who's got ambition. Someone who's going places, you know? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, someone like you doesn't deserve me. You're nice, but you're stuck. You're not going anywhere. And I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with that. I stood there, shocked, as she walked away without another word. She didn't even look back. And that was it. I was left standing on the sidewalk, feeling like I'd just been kicked in the chest. I didn't chase after her. I didn't call or beg her to come back. I just stayed quiet, waiting for some kind of sign that it would all make sense. But I didn't hear from her for days. The days that followed felt like an eternity. It wasn't just the silence from Katie that bothered me, it was the way everything she said replayed in my mind, over and over again. Someone like you doesn't deserve me. Those words had become a mantra, echoing in my head, making everything feel heavier. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. How could she just say that and walk away without even giving me a chance to explain? I'd always been the type to reflect on things, to question whether I'd done something wrong. But this time, I couldn't see where I went wrong. I'd been nothing but supportive of her ambitions, of her dreams. I'd always listened when she talked about her work, even when I couldn't relate. But now, it felt like everything had been leading up to that one moment. Like all those little comments about my job, my career, were stacking up, waiting to burst out. I kept myself busy, working, trying to push through the days as best as I could. The routine helped, but it didn't stop the questions. I hadn't reached out to Katie, mostly because I didn't know what I'd say. What could I say? I wasn't about to beg for her to reconsider. I wasn't about to grovel at her feet. If she didn't see value in me, in who I was, then maybe it was better this way. And then, out of nowhere, she texted me. Can we talk? I'm sorry for how things ended. Can you meet me? Please. I stared at the message for a while, my finger hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to respond with something snarky, something that would make her feel the same way I had felt. But the other part of me, the part that still cared, even after everything, wanted to hear her out. Maybe she'd had time to think. Maybe she realized she had been too harsh. I typed out a reply, my fingers slow and deliberate. Okay, where do you want to meet? She suggested the same cafe where it all went down. I wasn't sure why, but something about that felt like she was trying to recreate the moment. Maybe she thought it would make things easier to talk through, or maybe she was just trying to push the reset button. Either way, I agreed. The next day, I arrived early, like I always did, and took a seat at the same table by the window. This time, though, I couldn't focus on emails or social media. My mind was racing, wondering what she was going to say. Why was she reaching out? Was she just trying to ease her conscience, or did she really want to fix things? When Katie walked in, I immediately noticed how different things felt. She didn't seem as confident as usual. There was no bright smile on her face, no spark in her eyes. She looked tired. Her usual poise was gone, replaced with a sense of hesitation. She stood by the door for a second, scanning the room, and when our eyes met, she gave me a small, almost apologetic wave. I didn't wave back, though I knew I probably should have. Instead, I just watched her make her way toward me. She sat down, and for the first time in a long time, I couldn't read her. We sat in silence for a moment. I was waiting for her to speak, but she just stared at her hands, tapping her fingers nervously on the table. Finally, she spoke. I've been thinking a lot about what I said last time about us. Her voice was quiet, almost unsure. It wasn't the confident, playful tone I was used to. I didn't mean it. At least, not the way it came out. I raised an eyebrow, not really sure where this was going. Then what did you mean? She looked up at me, her eyes searching for something, maybe understanding, maybe forgiveness. I was frustrated. And I was feeling pressure from everyone around me. My friends, my family. They don't understand what we have, or what you do. I guess I started to doubt it all, too. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that maybe she had realized the gravity of her words, that she understood how deeply they cut me. But I couldn't help but wonder if she was just saying what she thought I wanted to hear. I had to be careful. She'd already shown me what she was capable of when things didn't go her way. I wasn't sure if I was ready to let that slide just because she was finally reaching out. I don't know, Katie, I said, my voice steady but cold. You can't just tell someone they don't deserve you and expect everything to go back to normal. You can't say that and think there won't be consequences. Her face fell, and she reached across the table, but I pulled back instinctively. I know. I didn't mean it, I swear. I was just angry, and I said things I didn't mean. You've always been good to me, and I realize now how much I've taken that for granted. I couldn't tell if she was being genuine or if she was just saying the right things. But there was a part of me that still cared, and that part was making it hard to think clearly. I stared at her for a long moment, weighing everything she had said. But the doubt in my mind kept growing, and I knew there was more to this than she was letting on. Then why now? I asked. Why the message? Why the sudden change of heart? She seemed to hesitate, biting her lip. I've been talking to my friends, and I realized that I don't want to lose you. I was too focused on what everyone else thought, and I didn't stop to think about how I felt. About us. I'm sorry for what I said. I just, I want to fix things. I wasn't sure if I believed her, but the words she said kept bouncing around in my head. Could she have been that caught up in what others thought? Had she really come to her senses? Or was this just another attempt at getting back into my life on her terms? Before I could respond, the waiter walked by, giving me a chance to gather my thoughts. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm in my mind. This was a pivotal moment, but I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive and forget. I looked at Katie, but this time, something was different. I wasn't sure if I was ready to trust her again, but I wasn't about to let her walk away without knowing where I stood, either. Let's talk more, I said finally. But you need to understand, it's not going to be that easy. As I said those words, Katie's face softened, but I noticed a shift in her demeanor. It wasn't the kind of softness that came from genuine regret. It felt more calculated, like she was trying to manipulate the situation in her favor. I wasn't blind to the fact that she'd always been good at turning on the charm when she needed to. I had to be careful not to get sucked back into the same old dynamic. For a second, she didn't say anything, just stared at me, and then her eyes glinted, as if she was trying to figure out how much I was going to tolerate. She leaned forward slightly, her voice low and coaxing. Look, I know I've messed up, she started, but there was a tone in her voice that didn't quite match the words. It was almost rehearsed. But we've always had something special, right? And I know you've been working really hard on your own. It's just that I was getting frustrated with everything happening around me. I saw my friends, my family, and I started questioning whether this was the right path for me. I felt my chest tighten. This was all too familiar. I'd heard variations of these lines before, and they always followed the same pattern. I'd seen her do this to others, pulling them back into her orbit with promises of change, promises of something better, but it never really worked out that way. I wanted to stop her right then and there, but I had to hear her out. I needed to know where this was going. But you have to understand, she continued, her voice almost pleading now. I want us to work. I want you to be a part of my life. But you just need to step it up a bit. Do more. Show me you can be the kind of guy I need. I furrowed my brow, trying to keep my calm. This wasn't a simple apology. It was an ultimatum disguised as an explanation. She was trying to tell me that I wasn't enough as I was, that I had to become something else to fit into her world. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about her. And it was becoming clearer with every word she spoke. Step it up how? I asked, trying to sound more neutral than I felt. Katie hesitated for a moment, biting her lip like she was choosing her next words carefully. You know, the way you present yourself. Your clients, they're nice, I guess, but they're not exactly high profile. I've been thinking, maybe you could get a few bigger names. You could really push yourself if you just worked a little harder. I mean, I have some connections that could help you, if you're willing to put in the effort. My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't apologizing for the way she treated me. She was offering me a chance to fix myself. She was telling me to change my whole approach, to start playing the game her way. But it wasn't just that. She was implying that I wasn't good enough for her as I was, that the only way I could be worthy of her was by bending to her idea of success. You think getting bigger clients will change things? I asked, trying to mask the growing anger bubbling inside me. Katie's eyes sparkled, and I saw a flicker of satisfaction in her gaze. Of course, it's all about perception. I mean, what else do you have going for you? You could be great, you just need the right push. I could feel my grip tightening around the cup in front of me. It was all becoming so clear now. She wasn't here to apologize. She wasn't trying to make things right. She was trying to use me, trying to mold me into something that fit her world. For a moment, I just stared at her. The girl I had fallen for, the one who had seemed so genuine and warm, was now revealing herself to be something completely different. I could see it now, that glint of entitlement in her eyes. She was using me, just like she used everyone else around her. Her friends, her family, none of them were there for her. They were all stepping stones for her own ambitions. She reached across the table and placed her hand on mine, a move that would have seemed affectionate if I didn't know better. "I'm doing this for us," she said sweetly, her voice almost sing-song. "If you just listen to me and take my advice, we can have everything. You'll see. We can be unstoppable." I yanked my hand away, the tension now so thick in the air that it felt suffocating. "I don't need your advice, Katie. I don't need you to fix me. I'm fine the way I am." She blinked, clearly caught off guard by my sudden rejection, but her expression quickly shifted back to something more controlled, more calculating. "You'll see. I'm just trying to help you. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're not the right person for me after all." Her voice was colder now, no longer that pleading tone from earlier. She wasn't willing to meet me halfway, to accept me for who I was. She wanted me to be something I wasn't, and if I couldn't do that, then I was disposable. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor louder than I intended. "I think we're done here." Katie's eyes flashed with surprise, but she quickly recovered, her lips curling into that same smirk that I now realized was her default expression. "Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize that this is the best chance you'll ever get. You'll regret it." As I walked out of that cafe, my mind was racing, the finality of what had just happened settling in. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was angry. Angry at myself for not seeing the truth sooner. Angry at her for trying to control me. And most of all, angry at how easily she thought she could walk all over me. I didn't hear from Katie for a few days after that. It was quiet, and I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was finally rid of the manipulation. But I was wrong. About a week later, my phone buzzed with a message from her. The notification lit up my screen, and for a second, I almost didn't want to look. I had already convinced myself I was done with her, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was simple, yet it made my stomach churn. "Hey, can we talk? I really want to fix this. I know I messed up, but I care about you. Please." I stared at it for a while, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. She wasn't apologizing, not really. She was still trying to make this about her and not the mess she'd caused. The thing is, I hadn't been able to shake off how easily she had tossed me aside. The way she made me feel small and insignificant, like I was just some tool she could use when it was convenient. I didn't respond right away. I was angry, confused, and a little part of me still cared about her. But I didn't want to go back into the same toxic cycle. So I waited. I had to process everything, had to think about whether I was being overly harsh or if I was truly making the right choice. The next day, she called. I didn't pick up, and she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaky, like she was trying hard to sound genuine, but I knew better. "I know you're mad at me, and maybe I deserve that. But please, let's talk. I miss you, and I want to fix things. I don't want to lose you." But I didn't need to hear her plead anymore. I had heard it all before. The fake apologies, the promises to change, The "I miss you" lines that were just ways to reel me back in. I didn't call back. A couple of days later, she sent another message. This time, it was different. The tone had shifted. She was mad, not apologetic. It was clear she was frustrated that I hadn't fallen for her act again. "I don't understand why you're being like this. You're acting like I didn't give you a chance. You're just throwing everything away over a small thing. I did everything for us, and you just walk away like it doesn't matter. Maybe I was right about you all along. Maybe you're not the kind of guy who can handle real success." That hit me hard. It was like a slap in the face, and it confirmed everything I had suspected about her. She never saw me for who I was. She saw me as a stepping stone, someone who could either meet her expectations or be discarded. I didn't respond to her message either. I blocked her number. Now, a couple of weeks have passed, and I've been doing my best to move on. It hasn't been easy. I still catch myself wondering if maybe I was too harsh, if maybe there was a part of me that should have tried harder to make things work. But then I remind myself of all the times she made me feel less than I was, of how she made me believe I wasn't enough unless I was someone else entirely. I still think about her sometimes, but I don't miss her. I miss the idea of what we could have been, but not her. And now, I'm wondering if I was just a fool for not seeing through her from the beginning. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole here? Was I too harsh? I keep second-guessing myself, but every time I think about how she treated me, I can't help but feel like I did the right thing. What do you think? If you enjoyed this story and want to see more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have thoughts on this situation, drop a comment below.